field. Can they do it again? Yes, they can!
And the catch is made by Taj Washington. Touchdown, USC.
Blocked by Embiid! Timmy, yes!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pick Swap Media. Show's Ryan Coyle, joined by Joe Kmetz as he's back this week, back from his week hiatus while he went on his little cruise. But it's good to have you back, Joe. We're in full swing now with the conference tournaments. We've already had a handful of tickets punched. Today's episode, we'll be running through the ACC, Big East, Big 12, Big 10, SEC, and Pac-12 conference tournaments. We're going to be giving you a dark horse team that could potentially win it all. And then as well as giving our finals prediction and who's going to cut down the nets for each conference tournament respectively. So welcome back, Joe, and how are we?
I'm fantastic, Beef. It feels good to be back. Didn't feel right last week without being in person for Beef. Also, I felt like a degenerate on my cruise because I had the Kennesaw State game. I had the Big South title game. I had all the conference title games on my phone because I learned that ESPN Caribbean only does like when they have the NBA games and stuff. They just show reruns of soccer games all day and baseball games. So at 1 o'clock, I'm sitting there on my phone watching, checking scores, streaming. But it was a good weekend. Feels good to be back, though. Best 2-week stretch of the year right here.
Yeah, it's really exciting times. As we touched on, some conference tournament tickets have been punched. We're recording this on Tuesday around 6. As we're recording, there's some games going on right now as well. So pretty much from now until the bracket comes out, you're going to be having basketball games on from like anytime afternoon throughout the rest of the day. So pretty fun little stretch here going. But we'll get into the ACC tournament to start. We're not, like I said, going to go through every game. We're just going to give you a dark horse team to look out for that can make a run, and then give our championship game as well as our who cuts down the net. So we'll start in the ACC. Dark horse team, Joe, I see you have number 10 seed Boston College.
I do, and that's why I'm pulling up my phone because as I came in here to record, they were in a dogfight with Louisville, which, because why wouldn't they be? Yeah, Boston College is my dark horse. I went real deep for this dark horse. I won't lie, because I don't consider North Carolina a dark horse because of their name, and then I didn't think Syracuse or Wake Forest could really make a run. But Boston College being in this game right now, granted they're up 4, it's 49-45 with 12 minutes left in the game, and their best player, Quinn Post, ACC's most improved player of the year, is not playing today. They were saying he could come back for the game potentially if they win tomorrow against North Carolina. But honestly, the whole ACC is a dumpster fire. You could make an argument that any one of the teams seated 5th or lower, it's a sleeper just because of where they are in terms of the national picture this year. But for Boston College, this is a good year by their standards. They have 3 wins over top 25 teams. And they're going to play today. They're playing right now. They're going to have a game under their belt going into the North Carolina game. North Carolina's been coming off that rest after getting beat by Duke at home. This is also a UNC team that just looks like they don't want to be there. There's that whole drama off the court within the team, and they just don't look – it doesn't look like Herbert Davis really has – a control of his, he can't motivate the guys. And, you kind of see that they were talking about that a little bit in the Field of 68 network on their DTF podcast, how it just, it doesn't, you can try to motivate them as much as they want, but it looks like the players just don't want to be there. So winnable game against UNC, then they would have to advance to potentially play Virginia in the next round. This is a Virginia team they just beat in their home court a few weeks ago. Virginia doesn't play very explosive basketball. So if you can muck it up with Virginia, there's no reason why you can't win that basketball game. And this isn't a crazy thing because last year Boston College was a crazy full court pass layup against Miami away from being in the semifinals last year. This is a Boston College team that's sneakily, I couldn't say that word right, improving in the conference. I believe there were rumors they were trying to get their coach for an extension. It's the most games they've won the conference in years. They won 9 games, I believe, this year in the ACC. Maybe it was 8. But Boston College, not a bad team. Wouldn't be shocked to be sitting there Thursday night watching them in a dogfight with Virginia.
My sleeper team is playing tonight as well. That's Virginia Tech. So, Joe, I think this show is going to be coming out Wednesday morning. So, by the time it comes out, both of our sleeper teams could potentially have lost already. So, that'd be a good start to the show. But mine's Virginia Tech. I agree with you. Like, I wouldn't have felt comfortable, I guess, putting UNC as the sleeper team, even though they're the 7 seed. But Virginia Tech, they were a team that started out really hot. They started out 11-1, but they had a bunch of injuries throughout the year. They finished not strong, but definitely better than the middle stretch of the season. Middle stretch of the season, they lost like 8 or 9 in a row. Over the last 12, they went 7-5, but that included wins over Duke, Virginia, and Pitt, all likely tournament teams. Pitt still on the fence on the bubble, kind of, but when healthy, they can be a pretty dangerous team. They won it. They won the ACC tournament last year as well as a 7 seed, and they play that style of basketball where they're just going to kind of pace in space and shoot a bunch of threes. So you get them on a hot shooting night, they can put up 90 points on you, and it could be an upset for some of these teams. So I start off with Notre Dame tonight. I like them to win that game. And then going forward from there, talent-wise, I don't really think that they're that far off, just whether or not they can fully click together, because this is just a team that hasn't been as one the whole year. They've always been kind of battling something. So, but when they were together, they were 11-1 at the beginning of the year. But they're my sleeper team for this one. I think having that kind of experience last year as well as being a 7 seed and going on and winning it all, that was kind of impressive too. So that's my ACC dark horse. But now we'll go on to our prediction for the finals. Joe, what do you got for this?
So this final, I have a little bit of chaos happening just because the ACC being how it is this year, being kind of weak, it's so wide open. I have NC State, the 6 seed, over Duke, the 4 seed in the final. NC State's a basketball team, in my opinion. They also benefit playing in the earlier rounds, having the tournament. It should always be in Greensboro, by the way. They're in Greensboro this year. The fact that it is in Greensboro is huge for North Carolina. It's going to be big for all the North Carolina teams. But I just think Virginia Tech, like you said, Coyle, been dealing with injuries. I think that's what's going to hold them back from beating NC State in the first round. And this is a Clemson team that reminds me a lot of last year's Wake Forest, a team that was right on the bubble coming into the tournament. Wake Forest got upset by Boston College. Clemson kind of is getting screwed in a way, in my opinion, not being able to play an extra game. Like the fact that they got the 3 seed and not having an opportunity for an extra win might hurt them, even if they can make a run and win the thing that they get the auto bid. But that's, in my opinion, might be their only path to getting into the tournament. And last week they had a 96-71 victory over NC State. That NC State's been thinking about that for the last 2 weeks. Like if we get a chance to play them again, we're not going to let that happen. Terquavion Smith is an electric factory. They're a gritty basketball team. I like watching them play. And I'm expecting a gritty run, and I think they're going to be able to beat Duke in the final.
Yeah, NC State's a team I've liked the whole year as well. It wouldn't surprise me to see them make a run. But they're another team that has been pretty much solidified in the tournament field all year. Now you're starting to see them around the bubble as well. So making a deep run in this tournament would certainly benefit them. And, if they do win the tournament, they get an auto bid. So my prediction, I'm going to go with Duke over Clemson. Duke's a team that's growing on me. I think both of us throughout the year have kind of talked down on them, but there's no denying that they're playing their best right now. I'm going to take them over Clemson. I think Duke has turned that proverbial corner, playing their best ball at the right time. Won 6 in a row heading into this tournament, including 9 of their last 11, with 2 of those coming over rival North Carolina as well. I think that just takes your confidence to another level. They went through some lumps early in the ACC play, but that was mainly due to, I think, a young group. They've kind of matured now, and they figured out their rotation. I'm also either going to take Syracuse or Wake Forest, whoever wins that game. I'm going to take them to upset Miami in the first round. That's one of my big upsets of this bracket, so I think that kind of also paves an easier path for Duke to get to the finals. But with that being said, I just think Duke, out of any team in the ACC right now, is playing the best, so I'm going to take them over Clemson. Clemson's a team that is desperate. They need wins, and they need them bad to get a potential at-large spot, and they're a team that, and obviously benefiting them the most, would just be winning the tournament and getting that auto bid, so they don't have to worry about an at-large spot. But I think Clemson's desperation combined with Duke's hot play as of recent is the reason why I'm going to take that in the finals. But I just think Duke's a better basketball team right now. All right, time to move on to the Big East. probably the conference tournament I'm looking forward to the most, either this or the Big 12. But who's your dark horse team coming out of the Big East, Joe?
So my dark horse team coming out of the Big East here is going to be Seton Hall. Games being played in MSG. That's going to be a common trend, by the way. Let me set that for the rest of the show. Location is going to have an impact on my dark horse picks. But Seton Hall fans, Seton Hall itself being in Orange is not that far away from New York City. So going into the Garden won't be that hard, to pack out fans there. They also have a path of DePaul in the first round. Xavier without Fremantle, he's out for the year. That's big. It's a big loss for Xavier. So I could see Seton Hall winning that game. Then they have Creighton in the semi, or could have Creighton in the next round, which I think would be their ceiling. But it wouldn't shock me if they get past Creighton with, a game kind of being at home, or at least it'll be a pro Seton Hall crowd, in my opinion. Then they have to potentially run into, a team like Marquette or UConn in the final. But Seton Hall, out of these lower seeds, I kind of feel the most confident in them along with Villanova. But I went the Seton Hall route here in terms of my favorite sleeper in the Big East tournament.
Yeah, mine's Villanova. I feel like this has been something that's been kind of talked about the last few weeks since they've been playing better. They come into this as the 6. But besides last Saturday's game to UConn, the Wildcats really have been rolling with some really impressive wins since Justin Moore came back. Even earlier in the year, they were losing games, but they were close, and it was just like they're missing that one guy down the stretch, and Moore's back, and he's that guy. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them make a run. I don't think that they're going to win because they don't have any rest. They have to win, 3 games in 3 days or 4 games in 4 days? 4 games in 4 days to win it. But I think that they do have a chance to potentially get to the finals, starting with Georgetown. Then they're going to be playing a Creighton team who they just beat recently. Then an Xavier team, like you said, without Fremantle, who they've battled twice this year pretty well. I think they have a pretty not easy, but pretty doable path to the final. And it wouldn't surprise to see them playing on Saturday night. But I don't think that they have the potential to cut the nets down. But I think for how they've started and how they've kind of done throughout the year without their best player to get this far, I think that would be deemed not really success, but better than what we kind of saw from them at the beginning of the year where people were already wanting to fire Kyle Neptune. But excited to see what they can do in this tournament. I think it's going to be a good, building block for the future if they're able to make it Saturday night. All right, what about your champion for the Big East tournament, Joe?
No surprises here who I'm picking. I'm picking UConn to win the Big East tournament over Creighton in the final. UConn has figured it out. Granted, their schedule a little bit softer at the end of the Big East schedule, but MSG, whenever UConn plays there, it's basically like a home game. I think they call MSG, UConn fans call it Store South. It's always a pro UConn crowd. Even when we play St. John's there, it's like 70% UConn fans. And also, the game that actually worries me the most for UConn is Providence in the opening round in the quarterfinals on Thursday. I'm not that scared if we have to play Marquette in the semifinals. I could see UConn kind of cruising through the Big East. They're the odds-on favorites to win it. UConn absolutely mopped up a lot of the awards this year for the Big East. Sorry, my voice is cracking and I'm losing it. But Caravan going to go off. Snowgo's going to have a big game. We have one of the best 1-2 combos at the Big in all the country with Sonogo and Klingon. And I could talk about UConn for hours, but I'm just going to leave it at that. UConn over Creighton. I think it's going to be a great tournament. I always look forward to the Big East tournament every year, as you do, Coyle, being fans of teams from the Big East. But I mean, the Big East tournament is just such a special thing, and especially when UConn is now relevant again and being back at the Big East, it's so much better than instead of like those nightmare years watching UConn playing like SMU in the American Conference tournament a few years ago. Give me UConn here though over Creighton in the final.
Yeah, that's my exact prediction as well, Joe. UConn, Creighton. I'm a little worried about that Providence game too, because that's a Providence team that has kind of scuffled a bit down the stretch, and they're kind of hovering around the bubble now. So some of the bracketology things we're saying like they might need a win to get in. Obviously, beating UConn, that would give them another huge win and push them in most likely. But with a loss, They could find themselves on the outside looking in. So they're a bit desperate. UConn, we know, safely in, but simply, I think UConn and Creighton are the best two teams in the Big East. I'm worried that Marquette really doesn't have the elite shot makers down the stretch. They kind of remind me a bit of like Iowa State from last year, where they're a very good team together, good coach. They play hard. They share the ball well, but they don't really have the elite talent, and I think that kind of catches up to you down the stretch. And then Xavier, they were my team throughout the beginning of the Big East play. I thought they were really good, and I was buying a lot of stock in them. But without Fremantle, they just haven't been the same. I think everybody should be rooting for a UConn Creighton final. I think that would be a great way to wrap up the Big East season and be a great Saturday night at the Garden. But I just think UConn is a notch above this Creighton team. But I wouldn't be surprised to see either of these teams make like Elite Eight runs come the March Madness bracket. All right, we head to the Big 12 now, the best conference in college basketball this year. It's another one where I think picking a dark horse team was a difficult task because they're most likely going to get like 8 teams, at worst 7, I think, into the Big Dance. So who do you got here for your dark horse, Joe?
So with my dark horses, I tried to keep them, different as possible from you. There was only 2 that I would have definitely agreed with you on. One of them is yours, so I won't spoil, but I'm going to go Oklahoma State because I looked. Top 4 teams can't call dark horses. I don't have any trust in Iowa State. Oklahoma State playing in that first round game. They're sitting at the 7th seed in the Big 12 tournament. They're Lenardi's current first team out, and this bracket was as of March 7th, 2023 at 12:15 in the morning. So this is as recent as it gets. Oklahoma State is definitely going to need to win their first round game. I think they play Oklahoma in the first round, which will be a great game, rivalry game to start off the Big 12 tournament. But then they have to play Texas in the second round. And I didn't feel comfortable picking the West Virginia Mountaineers here because, the game being in Kansas City right across the border over in Mizzou is going to be big. There's going to be a ton of Kansas State fans like there is every year. And Oklahoma State would, not have to deal with that till potentially the semis. Oklahoma State is, like every team in the Big 12, they're a tough team. But they're sitting, literally they are the border of the bubble. They are the first team out, according to Lenardi. And I think that, that desperation, that hunger is going to be able to get them, especially with the Big 12 being so unpredictable. It wouldn't shock me if Oklahoma and Texas Tech played in the final because that's just how good the Big 12 has been this year. Realistically, anyone can win it. So I'm going to go Oklahoma State here as my dark horse.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued for this one to see how teams fare on like a neutral court, playing away from home because this conference has been so home dominant throughout the year. I would love to see the number like the home road splits for the teams like in total in the Big 12 this year. Just home court advantage in that conference has been so dominant. So I think the Big 12 tournament should tell us a lot about teams' potential down the line for March in the real bracket. My dark horse team is going to go number 6 seed in this tournament, TCU, a veteran team. I still think that they're in a position where they can improve their eventual seeding in the NCAA tournament. And I think they're a team that wants to be playing a little bit better than they currently are as they enter the bracket. Lenardi currently, as of that bracket this morning, Joe, has them as a 5 seed. If they knock off Kansas State, Texas, and Kansas, so potentially on the way to a tournament title, I could see them getting as high up as 3. Like those are 3 quad 1 wins over top 10, if not top 15 teams. Some of the best teams in the country from throughout the season. So it's a veteran team, and they really showed me a lot last March when they had that big time win over Seton Hall. They blew them out, and then took Arizona right down to the wire. And that was an Arizona team that won like 30 games last year. Yeah. Returned pretty much everyone from that team. I think this is a team that's coming back for revenge, and a deep run in March could start with a really good run in the Big 12 tournament here. So give me this TCU team to make a bit of a run. I'll just carry over my finals prediction. I'm going to actually take TCU to win it. I'm going to take them to beat Kansas. So 6 seed TCU over the 1 seed Kansas. When healthy, I think you can make an argument, a pretty fair argument, that TCU is the top team in the Big 12 on like a neutral floor. They went to Kansas and drubbed them earlier in the season when they were fully healthy by 20 points. And they might have the best player in the league in Mike Miles. Jalen Wilson, player of the year in that conference. But Mike Miles is a guy who's missed some time this year. He's back now. When he's in the lineup, they're pretty dominant and hard to stop. When he's been out of the lineup, that's when they really have struggled the most. So I think this is the tournament where we see him have his like March moment, his big moment on the big stage, and he kind of carries TCU to a title. But we talked about this a few weeks ago on the podcast. I'd be worried if a team like TCU went all the way in this tournament, had to play like these extra games, that they could potentially fall short in March, just because I think this is going to be such a battle to win this tournament, which is going to make it really exciting. But I don't know how much stock I'll buy in one of these teams, whoever winds up cutting down the nets in March, just because this is going to be another really difficult stretch of games and some more mileage on the body. So kind of a pick your poison type thing here, but I really like the makeup of this TCU team, the veterans, the kind of hunger I think that they're going to be playing with in this one. So I'm going to take them over Kansas on a neutral court.
Yeah, Coyle. I mean, I think it's a great pick. I think if TCU beats Kansas State, who I have winning over Kansas, so we both have Kansas making the final, I wouldn't be shocked if TCU made it to the final. But I also think, Coyle, that's a great point. Like you could see, let's say TCU does win and Kansas State loses in the first round. I would be more for picking Kansas State to make a deep run rather than TCU or even Kansas, because every game is going to be a brawl in this conference. It's going to be awesome.
It's what Iowa did last year. Remember, they were the hot team after running through the Big Ten tournament, and then they lost to Richmond in the first round.
Yeah, that was awesome. Iowa always disappoints, though, every year. Even with Garza, and they lost in the round of 32. That year, they were the 2 seed. But I think Keontae Johnson is just going to lead Kansas State here to the final, and I think we're going to be in for like an all-time instant classic Kansas State, neutral court in Kansas City. Probably be more Jayhawk fans because that's how it kind of goes. I think it's just going to be a great game. And it's just like, we've been saying already, like beating a dead horse. The Big 12 is just so unpredictable and such a grind. It really wouldn't shock me if anything happened, but I just think Keontae Johnson, kind of like what you said about Mike Miles having his March moment. This will be one of Keontae Johnson will be one of the coolest stories in sports after what happened with him last year with Florida. Came all the way back and is now dominating in the best conference in the country. It's awesome for him. And I think he's going to have another storybook moment in his last season.
All right. We'll transition now to the Big Ten. What's your dark horse team in this conference, Joe?
Another one of those you can kind of say, like Northwestern was 3 games away from being in the 12-13 game, and Northwestern is the 2 seed. Northwestern, if they had lost to Rutgers, would have been the 9 seed. Instead, they got the 2 seed. The Big Ten is a mess, is an unmitigated disaster, and only has 2 teams in the top 25. They are a very overrated conference, in my opinion. Lenardi at one point had 10 Big Ten teams in the tournament, which is just like, I mean, I guess, they had pretty decent out of conferences, but I don't know. I don't know if there's that many teams in the Big Ten that are deserving to make the tournament.
They're a bunch of average teams.
Yes. That's a perfect way to put it, Coyle. A bunch of teams that are the textbook definition of average. But I'm going to go Illinois here as my dark horse team. Being in the 7th spot, they would have a first-round game. I had it pulled up a little while ago against Penn State. Another team right on, Penn State right on the bubble. Illinois kind of being firmly in as an 8 seed, according to Lenardi when I was looking earlier. But the Big Ten tournament this year is in Chicago, kind of like what I've been saying already. You're going to have a stronger pro-Illinois contingent. Penn State basketball, I don't know how well those fans will travel. If this was football, it's a different story. But Penn State basketball isn't exactly known for their dominance, so I don't know how many diehard Penn State basketball fans there are going to be. And this is an Illinois team that's pretty solid, 20 wins. They have a win over Texas from earlier in the year. Double overtime game against Michigan recently. That game at Purdue, they had a chance to win late. They just fell up short. This is a team that really, having Northwestern in the next round as well would be big for them. I could see them making a run. And Coyle, to kind of steal your thunder from what you did with the Big 12, I'm just going to go into my finals. I have them making it to the final, losing to Purdue. I think that's a self-explanatory thing. I think Purdue is going to run through the Big Ten tournament and then let everybody down in March Madness, like they always do. I think Zach Edey is just going to be unstoppable. I think Illinois is going to upset Indiana and Trace Jackson Davis in the semis. And I just think you're going to see Purdue cutting down the nets. They're going to get a 1 seed, and everyone's going to be like, oh, here, look at Purdue. Look at this great draw they have. and then you're going to see Purdue in like an overtime loss against the 9 seed, like West Virginia, like we've been talking about. West Virginia will get like a 9 and beat them in the round of 32. But that's my thoughts on the Big Ten and the state of their conference.
My dark horse team, I'm going to ride with Michigan here as the 8 seed. Probably the most talented 8 seed out of any conference tournament that we're going to be touching on. Like their top 3 of Kobe Buffkin, Jed Howard, and Hunter Dickinson is one of the more talented, like top 3 scoring trios in the country. Anytime you have 3 guys who are capable of scoring 20 on a given night, it's going to give you a chance. And this is a Michigan team that is super desperate. As they sit 17-14, they have to at least make it to the title game. They'll still have 15 losses if they do, but they'll pick up some good wins along the way if they want to get this at large. But they can just eliminate that notion entirely by just winning the whole thing. And they're not short on the talent. And in these kind of tournament settings, talent is – I know talent's important throughout the whole season, but if you have your 3 main guys that are able to carry you and get hot and hit shots throughout this little stretch, winning 4 games in 4 days, that's something that some teams just can't prepare for. When you look at Purdue, like Edey is very good, but outside of that, like how much do they really have? Like Michigan is arguably a more talented team. Purdue just has the best player and a better coach. But still, talent for talent-wise, like it's not much of a discrepancy. And if one of these shooters get hot from deep, it could be some upsets along the road. So this is a Michigan team, too, that had 3 straight overtime games to end of the season, 2 of those being road losses to Indiana and Illinois that they definitely had chances to win. Maybe this is like they're just getting there, and then maybe this week is when they kick the door out and break through. I wouldn't be surprised to see Sunday afternoon come around and Michigan be sitting there in the title game. My final prediction, though, I'm just going to go with Indiana over Michigan State. It's an Indiana team that has really grown on me throughout the season. I think they're the best team in the Big Ten. I picked Purdue, as I was just talking about, to get upset by Michigan in the second round game. Opens up a nice path right there as well for Michigan State, who's the 4 seed, to get to the title game potentially. And I just don't think you get rich betting against Tom Izzo in March. He's been such a successful coach, not just in the Big Ten tournament, but in the NCAA tournament as well, except when it comes to, eventually winning the national championship. But he wins a lot of games. I think that when he doesn't have the more talented team, he outcoaches some people, out-schemes some people. I think them getting to the title game would not surprise anyone, but I think this Indiana team is the best team in the Big Ten, and I'll take them to cut down the nets. All right, 2 conferences left, the Pac-12 and the SEC. Joe, who's your sleeper team coming out of the Pac-12?
So this was the other team that I'm agreeing with you with 1,000,000% when you give your breakdown in a minute. But I will take Arizona State here, the Sun Devils, as my dark horse team. They're the 6th seed, which isn't, great for them. Washington State actually got the tiebreaker as the 5 seed, a team that hasn't been talked about all year. But you have Arizona State sitting there at 6. They have a chance to rematch USC in the quarterfinal round in that 3-6 game. And I think this is a USC team, honestly, that's kind of breathing a sigh of relief. They beat Arizona State. They did their job. I think they actually did enough to put themselves safely in the tournament, even with a one and done. They'd probably fall to like the last 4 buys, maybe even last 4 in. But I think USC will be in the tournament. Arizona State obviously is starving. They need at least 2 wins. They would need to beat USC. That would get them a quad 1 win. Then, playing potentially Arizona in the semifinals. That'll be – I think Arizona's going to win that game, I'll be honest. But that'll be a chance for Arizona State to really solidify and lock up a bid. I just think that's their ceiling, though, is the semifinal round. But I also wouldn't be shocked to see Arizona State all of a sudden on Saturday night, that like 10:30 tip-off, playing in the Pac-12 title game against like UCLA in the final.
Yeah, I could see the Sun Devils, Joe, making it to the Pac-12 title as well. It kind of goes back to what we talked about a few weeks ago when we broke down that Arizona State game, where I think we both said, like, talent-wise, it wouldn't surprise us if they found a way to win that game. We didn't obviously expect them to win it in the fashion that they did, but still, it's a Arizona State team that has a lot of talent. I could see them making a run. My pick is the number 4 seed in the Pac-12. That's Oregon. I feel like they're kind of the obvious choice here for the dark horse, so I'm not really sure if I'm, exactly breaking the atom here. But they've won this tournament 3 times under Dana Altman, and if I have like two teams that are pretty neck and neck talent wise, even, I'm going to take my chances most of the time with Dana Altman coaching. Very good, as Ross always likes to say, aligning Rubik's cubes. Like, he'll be able to out scheme some different coaches, especially in this league. It would not surprise me at all if Oregon did find a win at the tournament. They're another team that's hovering around the bubble. They're going to need a deep run. And a win over UCLA, I think, in the semifinals to get to the championship. So who knows? Maybe if they get to the finals, they might sneak in as one of the teams, depending on what some of these other bubble teams do throughout the week. But they're a plus 1,000 to win this tournament right now. In a Pac-12, that's not great. I do like UCLA. I do like Arizona. Those are the two kind of clear-cut teams, I think. But it would not surprise me at all if Oregon picked off both of them and found themselves dancing, just like they did a few years ago where they won the Pac-12 tournament, got a 12 seed, and I think they might have even won their first game. So give me Oregon as my dark horse team, plus 1,000 to win the Pac-12 tournament. I think you get some nice value with that as well. But I see we have the same picks here, Joe, for the Pac-12 tournament championship. You just kind of want to go into that a little bit.
I'll keep it simple, Coyle. I mean, I won't even go that long with this. This is the one power conference that I felt comfortable having the 1 versus the 2. These are the two clear-cut, no-brainer best teams in the conference. UCLA, I still think UCLA should get 1 seed, but we'll see what happens when the brackets break. Lenardi has them as a 1 right now. I think they'll lock it up, winning out, and especially getting that win over Arizona in the final would really help that up for them. I won't go into it anymore, Coyle. I'll let you say your piece, but I just think these are the two best teams in the conference. It's a no-brainer to go UCLA over Arizona.
Yeah, I got UCLA too. I think they're just looking to cement their status as a 1 seed, get the 1 seed out west too, which is most important, as all the other teams with Bama, Houston, and who's the other team escaping me right now?
Cool. I'm not gonna lie, you cut out what you said. You completely
Bama, Houston, and Kansas are the other 3 teams that look like locked in the 1 seeds. So UCLA, if they're able to perform Purdue over this next.
Our buddies Purdue are that other seed competing for 1 right now.
Yeah, so UCLA, but that most importantly, we get the West and then be able to stay out west for the tournament. So they haven't won the Pac-12 tournament actually, UCLA, since 2014. So I think that would be another kind of accomplishment for the Bruins under Mick Cronin and what he's been building there. They clinched the outright regular season. I think they want to kind of double dip there, get the Pac-12 as well. And it's a really good way for Jaime Jaquez and Tiger Campbell to finish up their Pac-12 careers with both league championships. So I think these are the 2 best teams in the conference. I'm not really buying Arizona in the tournament. UCLA, experience, good coaching, good guards. It's the recipe that I usually like and that usually works in March, but I don't know how, talented around those guys they are. I'm a little bit worried about them if they're not shooting the ball well. I think they could get upset, but that'll be something we'll talk about down the line when the bracket eventually comes out. But for Pac-12 tournament's sake, I'll take them over Arizona. All right, last and final conference to break down, the SEC. I'll start off with my dark horse team. This is the highest seed by far of my dark horse teams. This is number 10, Arkansas, as my team. I've kind of been hinting at this the past few weeks, but they might be the most talented team in the league. They haven't really exactly played that well down the stretch since getting most of their lineup back, but they just haven't been fully healthy at once all year. Who knows if that'll change this week. They're going to be in the tournament. I think this tournament will show me a lot more if I do have the faith to pick them as if they are a 10 to upset a 2 or something in the second round. But if any double-digit seed, I think in these conference tournaments that we've talked about have a chance of cutting down the nets, it could be the Hogs here. Musselman has been to 2 straight Elite Eights, went to a Sweet 16 with Nevada. He knows how to coach in tournament play. I think that's a big thing as well, and knows how to get his guys ready to go on a quick turnaround. So Arkansas has certainly an uphill climb in this one, but talent-wise, they're right there with everyone else in the league, maybe even at the top. So I like this Arkansas team to win on the back of that talent, or make a run at least on the back of that talent, and with some good coaching by Eric Musselman.
Yeah, cool. My sleeper here is a team that with their seed number doesn't make sense. When I say their name, it's wow, they're really out of nowhere. Vanderbilt got the 6th seed in the SEC tournament. They're actually in a 3-way tie for 4th place with Mizzou and Tennessee. But they ended up getting the 6th seed. This team's 18-13, and Remember that 101-40 loss they had against Alabama?
Yeah.
It was 101-44, excuse me. Since then, they are 8-1. They're only, or 9-1, excuse me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8-1, 8-1. Their only loss being on the road at LSU, which is a weird loss because LSU is terrible this year.
Yeah.
Vandy, once again, this is in Nashville. Vandy is right down the road from where the SEC tournament is going to be taking place. I believe the Vandy players are going to be able to stay in their dorms at their place. That's huge when you have all these teams traveling from out of town, having to stay in hotels. Vandy's going to get the LSU Georgia winner in the first round. They then get to play Kentucky in the quarterfinals if they win.
Who they just beat.
Yeah, just beat. Kentucky's been up and down, to say the least, this year. I know they got the 3 seed in the SEC, but this is a Vanderbilt team that, if it breaks right, they get through Kentucky all of a sudden. You're sitting there in the semifinals against A&M, who A&M is, don't get me wrong, having a great year, but it's still like A&M basketball. You know what I mean? Like Vanderbilt could have a chance to pull off an upset there as well. So Vandy is going to be my dark horse team for the SEC this year.
All right, we go on to the finals now. I'm going to go chalk here with Alabama winning, but I do have them beating Arkansas. I'm going to take Arkansas all the way. They do play Auburn round 1, who is going to be in the tournament. We know my thoughts on Auburn, but Arkansas could easily get picked off round 1. But I'm going to go out on a limb here, have some chaos as we usually see throughout this week in the conference tournaments, have Arkansas make it all the way to the title, but I'll take Alabama to win. Simply when Alabama has been at their best, they've been the best and most dominant team in college basketball this year, just routinely blowing out teams time and time again. I know the off-court issues might derail their play a little bit, but in a super weak top of the SEC, this is a, I guess, deep conference, but kind of like back to the Big Ten, some really average, mediocre teams. It wouldn't surprise me to see them struggle against maybe some mid-majors come the NCAA tournament. But this is a super weak, top of the SEC. This Kentucky team, not that great. Her the 2 seeds escaping me right now, but Alabama, the superior team in this conference. I'm going to roll with the best team, the best player in Brandon Miller, and take Alabama over Arkansas to win the SEC tournament.
I'm getting weird with this one. This pick should make no sense to me, and I hate this school. So I think part of me is doing this as a reverse jinx, but I'm going Tennessee, the 5 seed, over number 2 A&M in the SEC tournament. I think this team's going to rally around losing Zakai Ziegler to a torn ACL. I know it's tough losing your starting point guard right before the tournament. Got to go down a limb picking this one just because Alabama, ever since the off-court stuff really came out, struggled against South Carolina, struggled against Arkansas, overtime at Alabama, then they lose to A&M in the final game. They've been in dogfights. They haven't looked like the true number 2 team in the country lately. Now number 4. But this is a Tennessee team playing in Nashville. Going to be a lot of Vol fans. Kind of been my theme for picking all of these games. You have the neutral site court when you can have a pretty much like a home court advantage. They're going to take advantage of it. They're going to go far. I think Vescovi is going to shoot lights out from 3 this tournament. And I think we're going to have a rematch of last year's SEC title game, except this time A&M will be firmly in the NCAA tournament. But give me the Vols. This, in my opinion, is my biggest upset of all the conference tournaments.
All right, well, that'll do it for our conference tournament preview. Excited for the week ahead. It does look like Boston College has pulled it out against Louisville, so you live to see another day. We'll see if my sleeper team in Virginia Tech allows me to live another day as well. But any last second comments, Joe, before we head out? And then got one more episode to preview the brackets coming up next week.
No, I mean, I've said it a billion times, the best 2 weeks of the whole year. You have all of Champ Week ramping up, Selection Sunday. Then you get one day, you get Monday to relax, then Tuesday the playing games start. And it's from Tuesday to Sunday, another just straight week of awesome matchups. Every game matters now. There's no more, it was the middle of December and Purdue lost on a half-court shot and Rutgers. They didn't want to be there. Every game matters now. I can't wait to dive into it. It's the best time of the year.
All right. Sounds good. Enjoy Champ Week, everyone. And we will talk. I guess our next episode is going to be breaking down all the regions. So enjoy Champ Week, enjoy the selection show coming up, and we'll talk soon.